Um, we're recording. This is a relatively sparse office hours for July 1. Happy Canada Day, everyone. And I know a lot of people are out of office today and for the rest of the week. But for the few that are here, I think it'd be good just to go through any outstanding PRs and see if we can close some out. I'm open to any other ideas for things we should discuss today, but I know there are a few PRs that could use some attention. So yeah, let's get into it. I know this one already has a great deal of discussion. I've looked at it briefly, and I think it just needs a couple more updates, but it looked close to done. I don't think there's a whole lot more to say on this.
Yeah, I had one question on that, which Jeremy addressed, was just to ask whether we should, whether kind or resource is the right approach, because I think you see both across the different Kubernetes APIs. We've mainly used resources, so I just wanted to, I just wanted people to think about what the right approach is.
Yeah, I saw that discussion, and I wish I had a good answer to it as well, because you're right. You see both. I think I've personally seen kind more, but obviously in service APIs, we've been using resource, and I am not entirely sure which is better either, and why you would choose one over the other.
I think from the point of view of putting it into the client Go APIs, client Go usually takes a resource when you're doing the get list, so it's kind of more convenient. But I don't know if that's a good enough reason.
Right.
Yeah. We changed the object references to use resource because that was what the upstream guidance was, because when you request something from the API, you specify a resource. And I think the same reasoning would apply if you're doing a list or a watch. You're going to list or watch a resource, not a kind.
That makes sense.
Yeah, a kind is convenient when you have something in cache already and you want to test whether it matches, and then you have the kind already. You don't have to map it back to the resource. But then, so it's all a bit. Which one's more convenient sort of depends on how your controller is written, I guess.
I think generally in an API, you speak in terms of resources, right? It's when once you've gotten a thing from the API, you can say it's an object of this kind. You can deserialize into an object with a kind, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's consistent with kind of the other places we do this with selectors, right?
Yeah, that makes sense. It is interesting that we use kind so frequently in upstream, but all these reasons to use resource make sense to me.
Yeah, this is a little new to me too, but I'm trying to accurately articulate what I've learned in recent months based on upstream guidance, what David Zietz was saying.
Cool. Yeah, that's really helpful. All right. So I don't think there's a lot more to say. There's been some great feedback on here. I think Jeremy has pushed some updates relatively recently, and it feels like this is close to complete. Last I checked. All right. It really is just adding a resource field to alongside the route selector. Yeah. Okay.
What is in that type? Is that just a typed string, the group version resource type? Or is that something more than just a string?
That is
it's 3 strings, I think.
Yeah, here we go. Yeah, group version resource.
Okay, thanks. So that's interesting. I wonder whether we should be using that in the reference types we define. Probably not. I don't think, based on upstream guidance, that we want to use it for object references. So it's surprising to me to see that here. I wonder whether that should be 3 fields or whether we should be using the meta v1 type.
Yeah, explain that a meta v1 type. I mean, we are using a meta v1 type. Were you meaning we should redefine that type here instead?
Well, that's what I'm wondering.
Okay.
Well, maybe it works out to the same thing because, yeah, in your CRD you have 3 fields, it looks like.
Yeah.
So I guess the difference is, in the resulting CRD, these 3 fields are nested under the resource field, whereas, for example, in our object reference types where we define group resource and version, those are kind of defined inline in the type.
Hey, that as part of our reference, you mean like like the object references we're doing?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I think it makes sense there, but it feels. Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah. So what you're potentially suggesting here is having top level attributes within routes that are just group version resource instead of resource.group, resource.resource, and resource.version.
Yeah. Well, I'm wondering whether I wonder what the right way to do it is. Sorry, I didn't notice that earlier in the PR. I should have brought it up before. Might not be that important.
I mean, at a minimum, resource.resource is confusing. Yeah, this is good feedback. Do you mind adding a comment here just to capture this in the PR as well?
I can do that. Basically, I guess the 2 concerns are: is this the right way? Is using group version resource the right way to do this sort of thing? And
yeah.
What you end up with, you have the nested resource.resource. Is that something we want? I can add a comment asking about those 2 points.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. Thank you. Yeah, good points here. And so this is all within the context of a route binding selector, which we've got route namespaces, route selector, and then resource. And yeah, okay. So you could just as easily have group version resource spelled out here, whether or not, yeah, okay. All right, well, let's move on then to the next PR, and I think this one is, I think I can LGTM this one today. I just wanted to run it by everyone one more time, or actually it already has LGTM, it just has a hold. But James, this is your PR. I know we've already discussed this. I don't think too much has changed since last week, right?
No, I fixed it. I think I fixed the typo that Bowie found.
Yeah.
And I rebased.
Yeah.
Once this lands, I'll do the follow-on work to propose a DNS type address.
Okay.
And think about what that means. I believe that's used. That seems like useful, and I believe Andrew put a comment describing how AWS uses that.
Right, the DNS name for load balancers. Cool. I'll go ahead and cancel a hold as well. Any hesitation on this PR from anyone before I go? All right. Cool. That one should go in.
Cool. Thanks,
And
Rob.
this one, yeah, no problem. Thank you for the PR. This one, I know it was either nearly approved. It felt like it was so close to getting in. But yeah, now it has all the conflicts in the world. I think there was enough support for this. I know, James, you'd mentioned at VM, I think it was James, someone mentioned that you're moving to dynamic client.
Yeah, Contour does 100%
Okay.
dynamic client now. So I think we originally
Okay.
wanted this, but yes, it's
Yeah.
kind of moot for us now.
Yeah. And Elena, I think the implementation you've been working on is dynamic client now, but you wouldn't mind switching to this, to the like generated clients if they existed.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it
Okay.
will require some refactoring, but should be
Yeah.
easier in the future. Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Yeah.
This might be easier
So,
for Howard to land if you, instead of having 3 commits, he makes 3 PRs, then you can kind of get part of it committed before the rest of it needs to be rebased.
yeah, that's
Because the code generation part is probably going to be hit a lot of merge conflicts all the time.
yeah, and this though I guess the problem is that removing init everywhere is going to break things, but there are other fixes in here that I think I mean, yeah, you could add CodeGen, but if you're not using it, then it's not too helpful.
Does the init get removed or does it move around?
I believe he described this in one of the comments.
Oh, it's in the
Yeah.
It's generated.
Yeah.
Okay. So you will still get the schemes registered when you import the
Yeah.
package.
Yeah. So what I'm hearing here is there's no one absolutely needs this, but no one hates it either. And it sounds like it would help his use case out at least. And potentially maybe a bit more scalable if you're dealing with lots of resources here, and a bit easier to work with, but it does mean more code gen for actually developing service APIs. All right. Are there any other PRs here that, oh yeah, this verifier, how have I not, oh, I have looked at this and I've LGTM'd it. It's on Bowie. Let me just ping Bowie. Because I think he's good there. All right. And TCP route, Damien's not on this call. I think we've decided, well, I don't know, that it seems like the proposal went slightly differently than this PR, but I can't remember the difference between what Jeremy and Andrew proposed and what this proposed. It may actually be very similar. Yeah, it would be worth comparing the two, actually. Huh. Okay. I mean, yeah, this feels remarkably similar to the proposal from them. Okay, I will leave that to them for a while. Let's keep in traffic mirroring. I guess a lot of these I should just wait for Danian to be on a call to discuss, because at least traffic mirroring, I think we got paused, we got hung up a little bit on, does this even make sense in other use cases like multi-cluster? And the answer was, well, it doesn't really break anything. It should work fine. And I wrote a doc about how it could work. And I think now it's just gotten stuck with needing a rebase, but otherwise it's fine. And I guess there are bigger plans from both Harry and Danian that we're working on, reworking route entirely in terms of how it handles mirroring, splitting, and more.
We probably should define, I'm not sure if that one, but we probably should define exactly what mirroring is, because it's one of those terms where maybe different proxies mean slightly different things.
Yeah, that's agreed. I wish, I know they have a doc where they were proposing updates to this and splitting and more, but I don't see it linked in this PR. All right, I will follow up on that one. And that's similar, like all of these PRs are all kind of linked together and part of their newer single doc, as I recall, where both Harry and Danian had been working. Maybe it's linked in this issue. I'm trying to. Don't see it yet. Okay. Yeah. All right. I don't know. Yeah. And then most of these additional PRs are pretty stale and old at this point, which we could go through and do a bit of cleanup, but yeah, this original traffic split PR that had all kinds of discussion around it. Are there any PRs open that really should be discussed that haven't been discussed already? Cool. And there were a couple issues that probably could use a little bit of discussion. There were new issues in the past week. I think James, you talked a bit with, I'm not sure what, Jonathan on Slack yesterday. Well, this past week.
Yeah, so he's looking at some protocol, other sorts of non-web traffic protocols, which is kind of interesting. I don't really have any operational experience with these, so
yeah,
it'd be interesting to kind of learn more about them, I think.
Yeah, I agreed. I'll make a note. I'm going to follow up on this issue or the Slack thread and invite him to one of our meetings or office hours. Just it might be good to have a broader discussion about other protocols, even though I don't think at least ALPN or DTLS are part of an initial alpha. It would be interesting to at least understand the use cases and the goals.
So one interesting thing I think with some of these is that they're really more, I think they might be easier to implement with the network load balancer infrastructure than for people doing in-cluster proxies. So
yeah,
there might be some interesting choices to make around how we can express what a particular gateway class is actually able to do with these things.
Yeah, yeah, that's a good point. Cool. And Jeremy already has a PR to address this issue. Conflict resolution, we may want to wait till we have a few more people, but I think it would be good to go back through. We identified a number of potential conflicts, and at some point we need to follow up on these and identify how each potential conflict should be resolved. And I've identified some examples right here and just like a guiding principle. And maybe this turns into a very rough, PR or something, like just of guiding principles for the API for conflict resolution. But this doesn't answer every individual potential conflict. And I'm not sure the best way to do that. In some sense, you could have for every specific field that could have a conflict, you could choose to specify it in the documentation for that field, how conflicts should be handled. Or maybe we need some kind of overarching documentation of all the potential conflicts and how each one should be resolved. I don't know. Is there a preference one way or the other on this?
I feel like per field rules are
Yeah,
going to be
okay.
intractable. So I think I agree with you. Starting off with some general principles is a good
Yeah.
idea.
Yeah.
I think what you have there saying that if something invalid comes in, then you keep the valid ones is a good principle.
Yep.
So that gives implementers guidance that they shouldn't nuke the whole gateway
Right.
because one element, right? Because you can
Right.
you can construct an argument that dropping an element could create a security critical vulnerability in an application. And
Yep.
on that basis, you should stop serving the whole thing rather than continue on in a partial state.
Yeah.
And I think this guidance makes it clear what you should do.
Yeah. Yeah. This will be interesting, and this pattern likely won't apply, with the proposed updates to routes. One of the new concepts in that doc was the idea that you might be able to add some additional custom layers, like maybe you might add some custom authentication at some point in the processing of a route. And obviously there are some layers where if that specific, let's say, auth layer is invalid, you probably do want to drop everything after it. And so, like all guidelines or principles, there are going to be examples where it makes sense to disregard it and just drop. So yeah, I'm interested in the exceptions to the rule here, because like you say, James, there are certainly potential security considerations of leaving partially valid things in place. Yeah. Okay. I think we've already covered just about everything else. We've got a fairly small group today, so I think this is enough to cover today. Unless anyone wants to bring up other issues or pull requests to review, I think I'll leave the rest for next week, when we have a few more people back in the office. Well, not in the actual office, but whatever their office happens to be. Yeah. Anything else we should discuss, or is this good and give everyone back half an hour?
I think this is good for today. Maybe with next few sessions, we should start doing getting some traction on Bowie's proposal to scope the alpha release.
Agreed. Agreed entirely. And I know I've been wanting to contribute more here to service APIs, and I imagine others are in my place. But with Code Freeze coming up this coming week, I've been more distracted than I'd like. But I hope that coming into Wednesday, Thursday of next week, have more time to contribute, and we'll be able to get moving again on alpha, on narrowing down the alpha scope, and actually making sure that the various items we have in there get in. You know, I think we have a lot of things in flight, and you know, instead of adding more things to do, we just need to be helping things move forward that are already close to done or proposed and need an implementation to go along with it. So yeah, well, sounds good. Yeah, I think this is good for this week. Thank you to everyone for showing up. It's great to chat, and for anyone who has a long weekend, I hope you have a great one.
Thanks, Rob. See ya.
All right, thank you. Bye.
Yeah. Bye.